Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.2.2, in which I am attempting to make Kerbals a multiplanetary species. And we are resuming our base construction in progress, in which I am building the Minmus Shipyards, which is going to be our big production facility and launch pad for our future missions in both Kerbin Sphere of Influence and onward to when we move on to Duna. So I was doing the slightly tedious work now of getting all of the little additional bits attached, because you'll notice I have most of the base like pretty well assembled. You can kind of see that I have my the big main habitation segment there in the center, and then that leads off to one side, which leads to the assembly plants and the industrial refineries, which has a connection through a segment of workshops onto the big drillers. And on the other side is the, as you can see in here, in the left side of the screen there, the habitation area and the agricultural farms. Oh geez. Quickly place it. Well, I guess I'm not actually in any time constraint now that I think about it. But what I'm doing now is I'm just getting all of the individual, what do you call it? The storage units. I'm getting those placed, and that requires some kind of special placement. I have kind of an idea. Right now I'm wrestling with the fact that when I place this, it tips over because that thing is a little bit... I mean, it has mass, so... don't explode, don't explode. Okay. Alright, we're okay. I forgot that I was supposed to actually pick those up off the ground so that they didn't, just explode as soon as they contact and maybe slightly clip on the ground. But in any case, I'm trying to be clever with the placement of this particular anchor hub, because I want to fit things in kind of nicely. I have it in my head that I'm going to kind of arrange my storage so that it's actually kind of logical, so that I can tell like right away just by looking at the base exactly where an individual type of resource is going to be. Like I can tell that right off of the habitation segment with those inflatables is going to be supplies. Okay, so things of that nature are, I would like them to be connected, or at least close. And right now, I want to kind of nestle in the an inflatable right in here, in between all these existing bits, and then kind of have this thing off to one side. So I'm trying to be very careful. Don't bump into it again, please. I'm trying to be very careful about how I place this so that that will all work out. Alright, so reach up, get linked. Here's the link. I'll just jump up, it's fine. So I had a lot of questions about how I changed the Kerbal attachment system stuff, and as you can see on the screen right now, this is the Kerbal inventory system config file. So you're going to go into your game data folder and your KIS, and there's a settings.cfg. You're going to look here, and then there's the max distance and grab max mass, and that changes the defaults for all of your astronauts from thence forward. Huzzah! So as you can see, I changed mine to 10 for the distance, and that's because I don't believe that the construction mod override works, in that I believe that the construction mod has a thing that says, hey, the construction stuff increases your range. Like I've looked at the config files for the construction parts, and it looks like there's a value on the range in there, but I don't think it actually has anything to do with, I don't think it actually is used for anything, because you can't actually pick anything up with those construction parts. Like you can't actually grab with a construction, like from inside of a vessel. So I don't think that that actually works the way that that's intended to work, or I'm doing something terribly wrong. Please let me know if I'm wrong in the comments below. But in any case, that's basically what I do, is I just went in and I made that little bit of a change, and that's all I've done as far as changing the defaults. You get the construction parts do give additional carry weight, and that works. So having this unholy conglomeration of arms and cranes and magnetic bits and all that does in fact give me something like between 20 and 30 tons of lift capacity, just using one Kerbal. So that's incredibly handy, and that works fine. And I kind of like the idea of having to have that crane bit nearby. Like, I like having construction equipment here to do the work, but not having to worry too much about big team lifts and range and all that stuff. I like the range that I have going on with this one. Alright, so we are getting pretty close to, well, having a couple more things done anyways. Like I said, this is a little bit of a long-term process, but we're trying to get these set up in such a way that they'll be nicely set up for kind of like really for the really long term. And looks like that fits in very nicely. Perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping for. Although it occurs to me now that this one's going to have to move a bit because it's going to be a little too close. If I were to inflate the one off of this thing on the right, then it would, you know, clip into the other storage module, and I'm trying to avoid that. Alright, so let's get this placed over here. One thing I really don't like is that I have to mash the B key every time that I want to actually place something on the ground, because you have to lift it up so that it's not clipping the ground in any way. And for the vast majority of things, they are very close to like their default grab point, I suppose, is underneath the ground. So that becomes kind of a pain. Alright, so that's clicked in real nice. Alright, so I've been trying to cut out all of the running back and forth. Like I mentioned before, I've been trying to kind of do this a little bit differently than I have the other ones, where instead of the, you know, the seizure-inducing hyperspeed where I'm playing the whole thing at 4x and then trying to rapidly chase behind it with my voiceover. This one, I'm just trying to cut out a lot of the more boring bits. I don't know how well I'm succeeding, but and just kind of give you a highlights reel, so to speak, of what I'm doing here. So now that I've got a lot of these storage things set up, now it's time to actually move this, the colony box, and get this into a place that's a little bit more convenient, because everything I need to build now is on the far side in the opposite corner of the shipyard. And so the only way to turn, if you recall, this thing, and oh geez, oh no, this became unbalanced. I guess it's because I yanked out all the stuff out of the inventory module, but not the other side. Let's see, maybe the RCS and the SAS, well, okay, this seems to be holding stable. Okay, yeah, so I guess because I took out all the components, it was starting to get really unbalanced, but the SAS and RCS are powerful enough to negate that. So as I was saying, I built this thing before I realized that this particular wheel just doesn't turn in any way, so I actually have to pick it up off the ground and spin it around to make it go in a different direction. And thankfully I'm not going to have to do this too often. This thing has particularly limited utility, although I may disassemble a lot of these parts and use them as like some starter tankage for the refueling plant that I'll be building out here. I'm trying to decide whether I want to move my carbonite refining operation out here, or if I want to build an ore-based one, because I believe that the flats in my save have ore, which would mean that I could dig that up here. And I've read that Roverdude has buffed the production of ISRU fuel by something like 10x with the MKS parts to be more in line with stock refueling, which He mentioned also that the design philosophy for why that goes so incredibly rapid fast and carbonite goes so rapid fast is because you don't actually want to be sitting around waiting for that. That's not something that you do over a super long period of time while you're time warping or you're doing other things. You actually do that, while you're sitting and waiting, and I tend to agree. So I'm thinking about whether I want to build a new refueling infrastructure or if I want to just move what I have over here, which should work just fine, to be honest. Alright, so now let's just kind of take a look at what we have left, and what we have left are a couple more hubs, which is going to facilitate the additional storage modules, because we've got a couple more of those to place, and we have lights. I know somebody was asking for these in the comments on my Wednesday video, and I hope I will not disappoint. I'm planning on having these lights on, or these sunflower light pods that come with MKS, on every one of my bases going forward because they're amazing. They are really easy to deploy. They have a good snap where they actually attach to a node on the bottom. And they come in these little boxes that you can grab in MKS, and then they deploy into a big light up on top. And they have some extra, they have some solar panels that help them charge up during the day. I don't know if that's actually helpful in any way because, this base is nuclear powered, but it's good to actually have that light in there so that we can see, what we're doing. I've seen the difference between having, no lights at all and just kind of dealing with the darkness and using the headlamps, and actually having a well-lit base with a distribution of these light modules, and it's just so dramatically different. I need to, learn from Bob Fitch and attach more lights to everything that I use so that the videos that I do on the dark side of planets and moons are not so awful. Alright, so let's turn on the lights, and oh my god, it's blinding! Wow, so much lights. But yeah, it actually puts out a really dramatic amount of light, those the big light stands. However, what I don't like so much are the way that all the inflatables glow. I don't actually like the way that looks. It's they kind of just glow from the inside as if, I guess it makes sense because it looks like light is just being thrown on the side of the walls of these components, and that's exactly what's being simulated, so it looks fine for what it is, but they kind of glow, but then they don't have any kind of emissive of light, or I guess that is an emissive. What's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't actually have a light source. Trying to think of how things are worded in Unity. It doesn't have a light source, so it doesn't actually cast any light or shadows. It just kind of glows internally weirdly, and I don't like it. I guess it's just a personal taste thing. But alright, so we are getting the last couple of ball hub modules set up out here. Trying to get this very nice. I want this to be at least a little bit symmetrical because otherwise it's going to drive me crazy. But we have, I'm planning on having kind of a symmetrical set of 4 more inflatables, and that should be everything, I believe. Because I have 4, and then that's going to be 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12. That's a total of 12, and there are 11 different types of what do you call it? Textures, I guess? Paint? Like it says repaint when you change what type of cargo goes into one of these inflatables. But there's 11 different types, and so I'm planning on, I have 12. So I'm going to have 1 of everything so that this base can process every type of, oops, these are backwards. Whoops. Let me try that one more time. I want 1 of everything so that this base can process every type of resource if needed to and from planetary logistics. I don't know how necessary that's going to be, but I want this base to have that capability because I want this to be kind of the Uber base that deals with the end result of all things. And I can have a million different resource processors and creators and little bases doing things, but this is where I want stuff to end up because this is where I'm building my ships. So that's 1 of each, and then 2, I think, is going to be for material kits. So the equipment one, because I want to be able to have a little bit more on hand. Although I might just keep the massive container box. I haven't decided what the ultimate fate of that thing is. I think I mentioned before that I'm thinking about keeping that around as the basis of my refueling apparatus. And so it makes sense to be able to have a big crate O kits as well, because that's something that is going to need to be sent out en masse to Duna. And one of the things that I'm going to be thinking about when I'm doing that is whether I want to build my Duna base like this, where I'm sending out all of the individual components and then a crate full of things to assemble, like kind of like a prefab kit where it's all pre-assembled, or if I want to build it in situ, like actually set up a workshop and construct it. But all right, here we go. This is actually just about done. This is looking really cool. I feel a little bit vindicated for having spent the time doing that planning. I showed you in the last episode my little planning process where I actually build things in the vehicle assembly building. And that kind of informs how this thing is going to look when I actually put it all together, because I'm just trying to think of what are the connections that I need to make. Like, where do these things hook together? Like, I need these... what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 3.75 meter modules that need to sit somewhere. Where do I put the dang things? All right, well, now I'm arguing a little bit with my material kits. Looks like things are kind of getting shoved into my inflatable storage. There we go. Kick that back out because I want to switch what side these are on so that the material kits are both on one side, like this little corner connected piece here, these two that are right next to each other. I think that's a good place to have those. So I'll swap over I think it's ore that goes over on this side. So I'll just do that. And then things will be roughly organized. Hooray! I like that. So yeah, I'm wondering what you guys think. Please let me know in the comments below what you think about that, about whether I should ship out individual components like this, or if it's okay to actually build some stuff on site, because I think I could save a huge amount of mass and a huge amount of space and volume, I suppose I should say, if I were to actually send out material kits, specialized parts, machinery, and a workshop, like an assembly workshop. Have like my first base be an assembly shop, like an inflatable assembly shop, and a like agroponics facility, and like that's it, like some habitation, and then build everything else on site. I think that could be pretty cool, and especially if I'm doing it with Dunan resources, like if I'm actually digging up metallic ore and all that other stuff to actually build out the resource chain. I would have to get some help from off-world resources at first, because you need a whole lot. Like, I mean, just take a look at what the infrastructure is. Like, as far as I can tell, this is the bare minimum to make material kits. Like, this is not balanced for the efficiency of different resource chains and like getting more from one type of thing than another. But speaking of resource chains, here comes the resources from Planetary Resources. Logistics. It looks like things are getting shoved into these containers just because I have something that could demand the resource. So I don't actually understand exactly how you pull things from planetary storage. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. I don't exactly know how to get stuff out on demand. Like, I know that if you have a conversion happening on your vessel, that you will pull things over, but I'm not sure how to force that. Like, if I wanted to do material kits, could I just do that? Like, could I just pull material kits if I had a whole bunch in planetary logistics? I'm not 100% sure. All right. So with the majority of the initial construction completed, we are sending Valentina and Garina Kerman back to Minty Station. They've spent a good long time out at the Minmus Shipyards, assembling and driving around the cranes and all that stuff, but It's going to be a little while before the final little bits get sent out. I think the next step is going to be sending out crew and then actually activating all of the functionality of the base. Like I need to send out an engineer, I have a whole range of crew that I'm going to need to actually activate and start the facility and start the construction and assembly of all the different bits and pieces and parts. So that'll be something that we have coming up very, very soon. Alright, so we got ourselves a little bit of science from kind of going around and rounding up everything. So let's see what we should get. What am I missing? I feel like I have pretty much the entire tech tree locked, but there's some expensive nodes that I haven't been able to get. I think this is kind of the big thing that I've been missing, are these 5-meter stack decouplers. Also, those big inline probe cores would help me recover things as well, but I'm thinking these... Why can't I click on you? Hello? Okay, one more try, come on. Okay, yeah, so these big structural bits, I think, are what I've been missing. I haven't been able to build much with 5-meter rockets, so that should be very, very helpful. Like the interstage adapters for 5-meter down to 3.75, and the big 5-meter clusters and that sort of thing. So that should be fun. We have a couple more things that we're looking forward to as well. All right, so the last thing that I think we're gonna deal with in this episode is the nuclear tug, which is bringing out our new 3.75 meter container. I know I was talking about a 5-meter one, but I figured I should, step this up one at a time. I took the time to build this big 3.75 meter one, so we should see how it works. So now we are actually just now coming into a landing on Minmus. I've kind of forwarded past all of the not refueling, I haven't refueled the tug, but the launching of this module, then the rendezvous and bringing it back into Kerbin's orbit and then sending it back out to Minmus's orbit and that whole thing. You've seen that. It looked a lot like it did last time. So we're going to move right into getting this thing landed on Minmus. Oh look, there's our landing site. So this thing is a little bit heavier, a little bit bigger. Okay, it's a lot bigger and heavier. Now we're looking at dropping about 55-ton currently module on top of that little 2.5-meter docking port. So that's gonna be a little dicey. My thought here is I want to kind of drop this as cleanly and as straight as possible. So I'm trying really hard. Not that hard, apparently. But I'm trying very hard to bring this down fairly straight. So my ideal scenario here is I kind of kill my horizontal velocity just on top of this thing. And then just kind of drop straight down from a couple meters up so that I don't have as much of an issue with horizontal velocity at the last minute. Because I do have some pretty decent thrusters, RCS thrusters, and they're pretty decently balanced, but I don't want to have to rely on them a huge amount. Alright, so let's see if any of that means anything as far as my intentions. So I'm killing my velocity here because I'm a bit off, and I want to push myself over the top of this docking port. And we can actually use the monopropellant to push ourselves laterally because, 6 of these Space Y 5-way thrusters pushing in the same direction actually puts out a pretty decent amount of thrust. So, oh no, what am I doing? Okay, so I got a good tip that pointing yourself radial out points you in surface mode, points you straight up. So if you point radial in, if you're pointed down, and I've controlled from my downward facing docking port, then you get the same effect. So I'm doing that, and you see I'm using the NavyFish's docking alignment indicator to make this a whole lot easier. Because what is this but rendezvous and docking? And just like in space, it uses the same exact principles of pointing yourself down the barrel and trying to kill all of your lateral velocity in both axes. And boop. A little bit of a boop. I'm a little bit off. I was a little bit off to begin with, so let's just kind of slide over. Ka-chunk! Huzzah! We are docked and ooh, that's a little wobbly. Yeah, this is okay. This was not designed with this in mind. The 2.5 meter one stood stock still, but this big 3.75 meter thing with that huge lifter stage on the top of it is a different story entirely. It's a little bit top heavy now with those little landing legs. But that's not going to stop me from filling this thing up with exotic minerals. So this is, in an ideal circumstance, going to be a 4 million fund payday. And one of the things that I definitely have planned is being much more careful with the nuclear tug's injection burn around Kerbal, and also where and when I let this thing go. I want to plan as best as I possibly can how to drop this directly on top of the Kerbal Space Center, because I have the trajectories mod, which means that I should be able to, in theory anyways, be able to nail that landing within a few kilometers. It doesn't need to be like, I'm not expecting to be able to drop this like directly on the launch pad or directly on the runway or anything, although that would give me an even better return. We're going to get as close as we can and see how it goes. And I would like to try to do this manually and not use stage recovery. Stage recovery can feel cheaty in a way, because landing what is now a 115 kilogram payload, about 115 tons, that's gonna offer its own very delightfully unique challenges. Alright, so as you can see, I have just pushed off a little bit up into my ascent, and then I actually just stopped to set up a maneuver node to deal with our rendezvous. 1.6 kilometer separation, that should be fine. Like, we're dealing with such small amounts of delta V that I'm not all that worried about getting out there and getting and killing any relative velocity. Like, this thing has about 400, I think it's going to end with about 350 meters per second of delta V remaining, and I'm going to use that in my re-entry burn around Kerbal when I'm deorbiting this thing. Oh no, I have another 70 meters per second that I have to kill. So we're looking closer to 280, which is not great. I may need to refuel this to make this thing work. But in any case, we're dealing with such small numbers of delta V that it's not that big of a deal. The margins are pretty wide. And I think if my calculations are correct, I should just barely make it home with the nuclear tug. This is the second full trip of the nuclear tug, with a full payload pretty much each way, so it's going to be pretty tight as far as that is concerned. Alright, skipping ahead to our rendezvous and docking, you'll notice I have run out of monopropellant. Oh no! So what I've done is I've been basically painstakingly trying to do basically the reverse of my landing, where I get as far away as possible and kill the horizontal velocity with my engines, and then just kind of drop it straight in, but it didn't quite work. Ugh. I'm so close. I'm so close. Alright, so okay, how do I do this? I think if I just straighten this out, like, just put this totally straight, and then actually if I just come in, I should be able to kind of nuzzle right up to that docking port with this thing, and then just push up with the engine, because I think the angle at which I need to turn and shift and, well, translate is small enough that I think that I can bridge this gap and then just kind of, shove and push my way into this docking. All right, we're getting closer. And you can see that the Little green lines are lining up in one direction and coming away in the other, so this is still a little bit dicey. Oh, we're really close though. Oh, it's swinging back in. I find the green lines not to be super reliable when you're doing weird crap like this. And... oh, contact. We touched it. Alright, hold on. Now we're off a little bit in the angle. I think we can just kind of squirm the docking port into position at this point. Can we just slide it very carefully over? Okay, now we're getting closer. This looks better. Come on, a little bit more. Yeah, we're just about lined up now. That looks really good as far as being lined up. Blink, 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 blink. Bonk. Oh, come on. Hold on. Let me turn off my SAS and see if that helps. Give it a little more wiggle room, literally. Ka-chunk! Huzzah! We did it! All right. Zero monopropellant docking. I hate doing that. Oh my goodness, it's the worst. But it does give you a great sense of accomplishment when you actually manage to pull it off, so that's pretty nice. Alright, well that's going to do it for this episode. That's all the time that we have. I've actually run a little bit long, but we are just now going to be sending the nuclear tug on home with its precious cargo to hopefully return it safely to Kerbin, but we will get to that next time. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends and leave me a subscription below. I will see you next time.